Thanks for checking out the Artemis channel In the Blind today. We are going to geek out and make y'all a better shooter here because my guest today, my friend Dave Perkins, 30-year law enforcement. 30-year law enforcement?
30 years.
30-year law enforcement retired and founder of 603 Precision Tactical.
We are getting here today with the club. It's a fun feather?
Yeah. I can only imagine your B-roll must be hilarious.
When we sit and do the bourbon stuff, and I try to shoot for like a 15-minute segment, there's probably half an hour of it.
Yeah.
And especially after we've...
Oh, a few of those.
Because we only drink... I'll do this one, and then we'll have a cocktail, and that's it.
Right. But...
And we get, we get silly.
All right.
So... I wanted to bring David on and ask him some stuff about how can we make folks better shooters, okay? And I thought maybe the first thing I wanted to talk about was if I'm a beginner, where do I even begin to learn to shoot, how to shoot, where to go, who to see, who to listen to when it comes to what to buy?
So I'll kind of start with something that might be a little controversial for our salespeople in the room. But what is the job of a salesman? To sell. Right? The job of the salesman is to sell. So if you go to a gun shop and you're not familiar with anyone that works there, they might not have your best interest in mind, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So bring a friend that knows a little bit about what they're talking about. Not someone who tells you they know what they're talking about, but someone who actually knows what they're talking about. So you won't just buy things that you don't necessarily need. And there's a lot of stuff out there that you don't really need, right? We've both been hunting for years, and there's stuff. And you end up with stuff, and it ends up in a bin in your basement, and you never use it. The gun world is exactly the same, right? I've got Rubbermaid totes full of holsters and accessories that I was like, that looks really cool. Or someone told me, hey, you have to have this. And you don't. You really don't. At the end of the day, you need a good quality firearm, quality ammunition, and desire. And then you can kind of get rolling. Starting at local gun ranges, joining a club, that kind of stuff. There's going to be people there that can help you with that. There's all kinds of companies out there that will teach you. Things that I usually tell people, if someone tells you this is the only way to do this, find someone else. There's no such thing as the only way. There really isn't. When I have a student, and I mentioned this to you many times, I'm not trying to make you be able to do what I do. I want to make what you do better. So if we can spend that time working on what you want to do. So the big, long roundabout answer here is I have to ask you a lot of questions. What do you want to do? Are you buying a rifle to go hunting? Are you buying a handgun to go to the range? Are you buying a handgun for home defense or you want to conceal carry? There's a lot of questions that have to be asked. And if I just walk in and say, I want to conceal carry, well, they're going to say, well, you need a really tiny gun that is easy to conceal carry.
I just bought one of those. And
how do you like shooting it?
I like carrying it.
Yes. So that's the answer.
I don't love shooting it. I much prefer, if I'm going to the range, to break up my 1911.
Right.
But I don't like carrying it because it's so big.
Right. And I encourage new shooters to get a full-size gun. So when you go out to buy a gun, and you're like, what am I going to do with it? If you don't know how to shoot, and you've never had a gun before, concealed carry isn't the place to start. Right? Buy a gun that you can carry on the range or use for home defense that's going to fit your hand well and going to control some of that felt recoil. People always ask, well, how does it kick? And they don't kick, they push. Right? You've experienced that, right?
Sure.
There's no pain involved. There's two types of shooters, right? There's shooters that shoot low left, and then there's left-handed shooters. They shoot low right. Everybody tries to control that recoil. And like you just said, you got to let it roll. When the gun goes off, it wants to move. You got to let it move. The whole point is to get it back on target quickly, right? So as we reset that sight picture, we're pushing the gun back in place. There's all kinds of things we can do to mitigate this recoil, right? The 44 Magnum,
Being this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off.
Dirty Harry come out there with his one hand, he shoots, and the gun goes bang. and he brings it back down. Probably not the best gun for self-defense. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? It's going to take a long time for that gun to get back on target. Good for the movies. Really good for the movies, right? Start thinking in that 9mm full-size handgun. I don't care who the manufacturer is. Find one that fits in your hand comfortably. Some simple things you can do when the gun, you have the grip in your hand. Make sure you can touch your thumb to your middle finger, right? If your thumb reaches your middle finger without having to move your hand at all, probably fits. And then if you can take the pad of your finger and place it on the trigger, full face, that might not be where it goes when you press the trigger, gun fits your hand. So if I go and get one of these really tiny pocket guns now, and I get my finger in there and it kind of looks like this, well, where's that going to go when I move the trigger? And where are my hands going to be on that, right? You don't have small hands. You get one of these really small guns, where does my thumb go? Because if I run my thumb out too far, it might get burned by the end of the barrel.
I haven't done that yet,
But you can see how it could happen if I put my hand out too far. So there's a lot of things. And again, get some training. You know, if you've never done it before and you don't know anyone that can help you, there's all kinds of places. You can't, in every town there's a gun store now. In you know, there's gun ranges all over the place. There's local fish and game ranges. There's clubs. There's indoor ranges at gun stores. Every one of them has an instructor. If they don't have an instructor, they'll have a range master, and that range master is an instructor as well. Someone can help you. They can answer those questions. Or find someone you know, like, or trust, and bring them with you, and they can help answer those questions too.
So you started to talk about 9mm, and before we get down the road on some of the hunting stuff that we want to talk about, let's talk about concealed carry.
Concealed carry?
Where do you like to carry?
Right.
Okay. Where do you not want to carry?
So from a purely self-defense, if you want to call it tactical standpoint, I don't like to really say tactics because that's more of a law enforcement military thing, right? We're not trying to train that way. We're looking to defend ourselves. I want you to think about carrying the gun where you can reach it with either hand, where you could access it easily with either hand without having to manipulate the gun in some kind of weird way, without having to worry about maybe pulling the trigger in some way you don't want to. So I like to carry appendix right up in the front, offset, so it's favoring whichever side of my body I'm coming from. I'm usually coming in from the right side, so it's probably going to favor a little more to the left, but it's still going to be in the front. It's still going to be somewhere in that navel area. And you can see if I kind of slouch, I'll get some friction marks on my belly, right? From the tang of the gun, or if it has a hammer, from the hammer of the gun, because it's going to touch you. So then you want to find a holster that kind of protects that. So you're not getting, rash marks on your body from the gun rubbing on you all the time. The problem most people have with appendix carry is maybe they're carrying a little bit more up front than they want to, right? So we got a little bit more up front than we want to have. And the roll gets stuck on it when you sit down, and it's uncomfortable. So then they'll start moving it, maybe over to like front of the kidney area, or bringing it around to the back. Side, if you're looking at a clock, my right hip being 3 o'clock and my left being 9 o'clock kind of thing. 3 o'clock is good, right? It's on the side. If I fall, I'm probably not going to hurt myself. Anything behind you, falling backwards, especially right in the small of the back, if I get knocked to the ground with full force and I land on that gun, I'm going to cause injury to my body. There have been instances with people getting, fractures in their vertebrae from landing on their guns. Just falling on your gun, we've talked about this. Someone comes up and they shove you to the ground and you have the gun behind you, let's say on your hip, and you land on that, it's gonna hurt.
My back! Oh, my back!
There's nothing you can do about it. It's gonna hurt. And then trying to get it while you're laying on your back. Now try to get it while you're laying on your back with an injury to your right arm. So if it's in the front, I can get it with my other hand. I can get it anywhere. So that's kind of my thoughts on carrying. The other side of that is when we start carrying guns, everybody wants to carry a small gun. All right? Small gun, easy to conceal. I'm a larger person, right? I have the luxury of size when it comes to carry. I'll shock all the viewers by letting them know for years I carried a 320, 6-hour P320 appendix with one in the chamber. Still here to talk about it because the only way guns goes off is to pull the trigger. So that gun, it's a carry size gun, which means it had a full size grip with a shorter barrel, not a lot shorter, but I could conceal that three seasons out of the year. In the summer, you got to think about what am I going to do if you're going to conceal carry. So you might need something smaller. My thought process was I'm using a full-size gun all the time. I'm always shooting a full-size gun. So when it comes time to carry a gun, I want to make sure I'm really good with that gun, right? Because if I need that gun, it's the worst day of my life. I'm not thinking about things clearly. Bad things are happening. There's a lot going on. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to remember that, God, when I shoot that small gun, I shoot really low left, so I have to remember to aim high right. I don't want to think about it. So I carried that larger gun. And then as, I won't say smaller because my concealed carry now is not really a smaller gun, it's a narrower gun. So it's about an inch wide, right? And it's easy to conceal, but the grip is probably the same size as that carry gun that I had forever. And I still carry that appendix. Then the other thing you have to think about is, what is my magazine capacity? Do I have another magazine? Where am I going to put that? And then people say, I'll just put it in my pocket. Challenge for everybody out there. Put a magazine, fully loaded magazine in your jeans pocket. Go into a kneeling position and try to get that out of your pocket. Go into a seated position and try to get it out of your pocket. You're not going to. It's going to take time. You're going to have to manipulate that in all kinds of weird ways. Yeah. So it's not easily accessible. So then you got to think about, where do I put an extra magazine? And the holsters now will come with a magazine pouch attached to it. So there's all kinds of options out there. But again, if you're not comfortable around guns, putting a gun inside your waistband is probably not the best idea.
9mm, 45 ACP. Right? 1911 guy.
I go old school, the Wilson Combat 1911.
1911 wins all the wars. 45 ACP's bigger round, makes bigger holes.
Sure.
Why do I want a 9mm?
Back-to-back World War champions. I've heard it all. You know, why do you carry a 1911, right? Well, because it has the 45. Why the 45? Because they don't make a 46, right? I get it. Bullets don't necessarily have stopping power, right? An easy explanation. You ever cut yourself like with a sharp knife and not realize it and then go, wait a minute, I just cut myself. Why doesn't it hurt? Why isn't it bleeding? And then it starts to bleed. And then when you realize, I did cut myself. Now it hurts. It happens with bullets too. So there's all kinds of footage out there. There's a lot of news footage. The one I'm going to reference is a little bit older, and you can still find it on YouTube. It's all over the internet. There was a bank robbery, and the bank robber took a guy hostage, or teller. Might have been a female. I can't remember. And law enforcement made kind of a cordon to the escape vehicle. And the plan was, once someone had a shot, they would end the hostage situation. Guy walks out with the hostage and walks down this row. The sidewalk is lined on both sides with police officers. So you can imagine what's going to happen. They start shooting at each other. One of the officers gets shot in the calf. And he's dealing with the situation, tackles the guy to the ground. The guy has been shot, handcuffs him, gets up, and someone, you can see it's all shot from a helicopter. And he points at the guy's leg and he looks down and sees that he's bleeding, and all of a sudden he can't walk anymore. He falls down, he's in excruciating pain. He had been shot through the calf and didn't know it. So we can't articulate that one has more stopping power than the other. So all that testing that's been done about stopping power and foot-pounds was done on steel plates. Well, yeah, there's no give. We're not steel plates. We're not made of steel. So I would say for defensive purposes, magazine capacity, 9mm. For recoil management, 9mm. Shot placement, 9mm. I really love the way it feels in my hand, 1911. you know. And if I'm comfortable with a 1911 and I've got an extra magazine, as long as I'm good with that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of them out there. And I'm going to drop a name that probably no one's going to know. Clem may know it when we get to it. But Pat Poirier was one of the first professional firearms instructors I had. And he was a New Hampshire State Trooper for years. He's still floating around out there in the private sector. But he made a comment to me that stuck with me. Because I asked him, like, I had a lot of respect for him. So I said, what gun would you recommend I carry? And he kind of looked at me and goes, oh, you're a big dude. You can carry whatever you want. He goes, but I'll tell you, the best gun in the world is the one in your hand when you need it. So if you're good with a gun and that's the gun for you and you can't miss with it, I don't care what it is or who makes it. That's the gun you should carry if you can get away with it. 1911 is a little big to carry with shorts and a t-shirt on, right?
Okay, so gun we should carry. Let's kind of switch that up to hunting stuff. Okay. What's your whitetail ammo?
308.
Why? I know the answer, but I wanted to hear you tell me why.
Well, it works. That's a big one, right? But 308, it's readily available. So is 300, so is 30-06. But 308, I can get away with a little bit of a shorter barrel. You know, I can have that 16-inch barrel as opposed to a 24-inch barrel. Still have great accuracy. And my shoulder doesn't hurt when I'm done practicing with it. Right? So when I take that 300 Win Mag out and I shoot it 20 times, and I say, well, that's enough of that.
Like the 44 Magnum.
Like the 44 Magnum, right? When I'm teaching a long-range class, I love that 300 Win Mag because it can get out there. It can go and go and go. If I'm shooting a whitetail in New England, if I find myself having a 600-yard shot on a whitetail deer, I need to get off the runway. I have stumbled onto the airport, and I shouldn't be there. You know, we've all experienced it. When you go out west, they say, oh, I jumped a deer, right? Usually a mule deer, right? I jumped a muley. And like, oh, yeah, he was like 50 yards that way. When we're hunting, we say we jumped a deer. We almost tripped on it.
Yeah.
Because it's just so thick. So those long shots aren't really necessary. The 308 doesn't have that felt recoil. I can practice with it all day long. And the ammo is so readily available. You know, it's super easy to get. And all the different varieties, right? And at the end of the day, it's what I grew up with. So that's where most people are going to go. What did you grow up with? And if you grew up with a 30-06, we still have our 30-06s because that's what Grandpa had, right?
That's what my father had.
Yeah.
Was 06.
Yeah. So the 06 is always going to be there because we're going to pass that down to our kids as well.
One of the things we were talking about the other day, you and I, was getting dropped off in Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
So if you would tell that story, that was...
Yeah. So, when people argue with, well, I need the new 6.5, I need the Creedmoor, the PRC, the 300s, all these new ammo.
I don't have any of those.
Well, there's a reason for that.
No, I do. I guess what I'm saying is that I shoot 6.5 need more.
Right.
And I've got the 7 PRC that I just plays loud.
And they're great guns. They really are. And that 6.5 takes down a lot of animals all over the world, right? It's a great round. But at the end of the day, like we were talking about, if the zombie apocalypse happens and I happen to crash land in Alaska, what rounds am I going to find in those hunting cabins? I'm going to find 308, 300, and 30-06. They're going to be out there. And what is that 300 and 30-06 for? Grizzly, moose, elk, bigger animals. A whitetail deer doesn't need that much. It doesn't need that much. And I don't need to carry that extra weight.
Which is why you see a lot of guys starting 243. And
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, my oldest son's first year was with a 243. So it's super easy. And that's a nice light gun, right? So there's a lot of options out there. But some of these newer rounds, you're starting to see the ammo companies are slowing down on production because people aren't buying them anymore. And when you start looking at, 7 PRC, just looking at the price was almost $5 a round. Now it's like $3.70 a round.
Oh,
so it's come down a little bit. Yeah, it has come down a little bit. But I bought ammo in anticipation of buying the rifle. And then after shooting someone else's, I was like, maybe I don't need that because it's really loud. It doesn't have the felt recoil of a 300 Win Mag, but it's still got the felt recoil. And it's a round designed for shooting really far away. How often am I going to do that?
Here, not.
No.
No, that's an out west gun.
Yeah. It's definitely, Montana, Wyoming,
Right.
mountaintop to mountaintop, bighorn sheep kind of thing. And if you're hunting bighorn sheep, price isn't an option anyway.
Price isn't an option. Good segue. Like we wrote that. Do I have to spend thousands of dollars for a good rifle?
No. There's a lot of good guns out there. And we've talked about this before. I've taught a lot of precision scope rifle classes. And I've seen people come in with, $15,000, $20,000 setups. And they get outshot all day long by the kid that just went and bought a Ruger precision rifle. And they kind of look down their noses like, oh, Ruger Precision. It's a phenomenal rifle.
I've got a Ruger Precision that I'm not a very good shot, but it's MOA at 100 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is,
Ruger Precision, Ruger American.
You have a Ruger American.
Yeah.
So the Ruger American and the Ruger Precision, same action type. The Precision is just designed for precision shooting. So it costs a little bit more, but in the grand scheme of rifles, it's very affordable. And there's a lot of affordable options out there. If you want something, that's gonna be super reliable, it's gonna be super repeatable, it's gonna have all the great coatings on it, so you're not gonna have rust and all that. Plan on spending $1,500 to $2,500. But you can get a great hunting rifle for $700-800.
Glass. You can spend some money on glass.
Oh, yeah.
What's the cliche? Spend as much money on the glass as you do on the gun, or is it half?
Twice as much on the glass as you do on the rifle.
Twice as much on the glass.
Plan on spending twice as much. So here's the big thing, and I've heard golf pros say this. People who buy antique cars say this. Buy once, cry once.
Meaning?
Buy the right tools, buy the right gear, and you'll never have to buy stuff again. You'll only have to buy more if you want to, if you buy the right stuff, right? So if I go and spend $1,500 on a rifle, in order to get the $1,500 out of that rifle, I'm going to spend $2,500 to $3,000 on a scope.
Really?
Yeah. The reason for that is not all scopes are the same, right? There's a lot of comments I could make, a lot of quotes I could give, but I don't know who's going to see this, so I don't want to offend.
I understand. Let me ask you this. Let me kind of. There's one particular manufacturer that I have on my guns. Budget level, considered to be pretty good glass.
Yeah.
I didn't spend twice as much for the glass as I did for the gun.
And again, it comes down. So remember, I said earlier.
But again, I guess it comes down to I'm shooting 100 yards, 150,
Right.
200 yards.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not doing that 1,500 yards.
So and here's the thing. If I'm buying my scope at Walmart, which you can do, and for hunting at 100 yards, it's probably going to work. But just remember, you bought a scope at Walmart, right? You're going to check the focus. You're going to see if I can make the reticle super clear, and you're like, yeah, this is perfect. Then you can get outside in natural light and try to see something more than 50 yards away and be like, that's kind of fuzzy. Not all scopes are made the same. Right? So if you look at your scope, if it has a 1-inch tube, then it's made for hunting. It doesn't have as much travel up and down, left and right. I don't have to worry as much about elevation or windage because I'm not planning on going that far. Then you'll see tubes in that 30 millimeter, 34 millimeter. Now, the more popular 35 millimeters been really kind of coming along. Some of the manufacturers are just making all of their scopes in 34 millimeter. And if you look at the names out there, the Vortex, the SIG, the Night Force, all those things that have comparable mechanism and glass, you can find a price point that's going to work. If you're going for like the Buckmaster, which is a Sig Sauer product now.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're looking at that Buckmaster, it's going to be great for those 50 to 100 yard shots.
So the 3x9 Buckmaster on my Remington Woodmaster that I'm going to shoot 125 yards max.
It works. What do you need to do, right? If I need to now all of a sudden I'm going to take my gun to Montana for a big elk hunt and I'm going for the trophy of a lifetime, I'm going to want something that's going to give me really good clarity out to 400 to 600 yards. That scope's not going to do it. All right. The other thing that you'll see is, when you start to try to dial that scope, let's say you need to come up 30 minutes to take your shot. You might only have 18 minutes to travel up. So now you're going to have to try and hold. And you can do it. And it's kind of fun to do. Hitting a target you're not even seeing because your buddy's on glass telling you where to aim, right, is fun. But that's not an ethical thing to do to an animal. Right? We want to make sure that we're at least putting it down in a reasonable amount of time. It's not suffering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that'll segue into something else we'll talk about later. But the glass, if you look, there's...
What's it going to segue into that we're going to talk about later?
Why you should get some training. Because I don't want to track that thing forever.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But glass is, you're looking at glass and manufacturers of glass are only made in a few places. You've got Chinese, you've got German, you've got Japanese, right? And there's LaCroix, I believe now is US-based company, but there's still, when you buy a high-end scope, it's going to say assembled in Germany, assembled in Japan. Not so much assembled in China, but you're going to see some of those. Places like the Philippines now are doing really good things because it's all in that general area. When you take that preform of glass to bring it somewhere to be polished and finished, it's a process. If I polish and finish that glass and then ship it, now it's vibrating on a plane or on a ship or somewhere, it's going to cause micro abrasions and it's going to make clarity a problem. That's why a lot of your high-end stuff is still manufactured overseas.
I'm at the range and I'm low left. I'm by myself. How do I self-correct a miss?
So handgun, you're shooting low left, and everyone wants to say, how do I stop doing that? I'm going to date myself a little bit, and I think it's even older than I am, but there's an old Bob Newhart sketch where he's a psychiatrist.
Bob Newhart?
Yeah, he's a psychiatrist. You can still find this one. It's funny. And he's kind of going through his thing, and they're like, well, when I do this, it gives me a lot of anxiety, and he's just like, well, stop doing that. That's his answer to everything. Well, just don't do that. Well, don't go near dogs.
It hurts when I hit my hammer.
Yeah.
It hits my hand with a hammer. Well,
Right.
don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. So the big question is, how do I stop anticipating? The reality is, if you take your arm to length, right, and you understand there's a handgun there, and when I press the trigger, there's an explosion happening in my hand. You are not anticipating because you're happy to be doing this. There is a fear response. And what's happening is, I tell students all the time, you're having a full body sneeze. You are trying to stop the push of that gun before it happens. So if I were to be throwing you a baseball and you closed your glove before the ball got there, you wouldn't catch it, right? If you put your hand out like you're holding a gun in one hand, if I'm going to hit you, right, and I tell you I'm going to hit you, right, I'm going to hit you as hard as I can, you're going to try to stop me from hitting you. You ready? 3, 2, 1. And you moved. I didn't do anything, right? Now put your hand back out again. I have my hand here and I say, okay, I'm going to push. Don't let me push. See what you're doing? You're constantly pushing on it.
Yeah.
What I need you to do with a gun in your hand is to think about, what did I do when I pushed that gun? Okay. I'm ready to shoot. I was clenching my abs. I'm going to tighten my abs. I was clenching my hands. I'm going to tighten my hands. I was slumping my shoulders. All right, well, I'm just going to tighten my shoulders and then pull the trigger. You're already in that position. Now you can't do it anymore. But that's really hard to explain to someone because there's an explosion happening in their hand, right? So it's really easy to show them that silly little thing of, I'm going to hit your hand, and everybody does it. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's coming. Here it comes. I got to stop it. But when I put my hand on you and I start pushing, you don't flinch. You just push back. So if you think about getting your body position right before you press the trigger, it solves 90% of that problem. So what I would say is, everyone's like, well, my stance is good and my grip is good. How's your posture? And posture is more important than any of the others. And if we were on the range, I would show you. And one day I will. As we get out on the range, we tend to forget that we're holding a gun, right? Until we put it in our hands. And then what do? We try to get away from it. Everybody wants to lean back. And then, because, we're old men now, why does my back always hurt? And if you look at a group of guys in their 50s and 60s, their arms are crossed, their hips are forward, and they're resting back, and they're putting all that pressure on their lower back. If I'm already in that position, how hard would it be for you to push me over? Really easy. Mm-hmm. So if I'm in that position and I'm going to shoot now, the only thing I can do to counteract what I think is going to happen is to push. So one of the things I try to show people, I'll fire the gun. I'll just hold it up with my thumb, press the trigger, and I won't put any other fingers on the gun at all. And I'll press the trigger, and the gun just goes bang. Why does the gun go bang? Well, because you've locked your arms out, rocked your shoulders back, and the only place the energy can go is back. Because I've created a fulcrum point. As opposed to leaning into it, soften those elbows a little bit, and now they act like shock absorbers. If you watch the best shooters in the world, Max Michel, and I would encourage anybody who watches this to just Google Max Michel and watch him shoot. That gun does not move. And he's like, oh, it's this, it's that. He's got this souped up. I've seen him do it with a gun off the rack. I've actually watched him when someone says, oh, you can only do it because you have that souped up race gun. He's like, what are you shooting? Do you mind if I try it? And he'll take their gun and do the same thing. And he's that guy. And I know there's a lot of people out there, but you watch him just effortlessly, just draw from the holster, hit the first target on a 6-plate rack, right? And the last one is hit before the first one is all the way down. It's just that fast.
Ding, 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 ding.
I've got the video. I can send it to you.
Yeah, we'll put it in here.
Yeah, it's incredible. So you watch these guys do it, and Dan Horner's another one. And Max is a guy about my size. Dan Horner, little guy, right? He's not a big human, strong as an ox, but he's just not a big human. So you think, oh, well, he's going to get pushed around with the gun. No, he gets his posture, he gets locked in, and he's one of the fastest shooters in the world. And watching him with a rifle is just amazing. It blows my mind. So all these guys are doing is getting ready. And, if you take a class and they give you the course of fire, the first thing they'll say, is the shooter ready? And everybody goes, yeah. Well, no, you're not. You're looking at me. Are you ready? Yeah. No. Where's the target? Look at the target. So then you're looking at the target. And that automatically squares you to the target. Now all I have to do is move my hand to the gun, draw it out and point my finger at the target, take my finger, bring it to the trigger, move it to the rear without moving the sights, and I hit the target. Shooting is easy until you put this in there, right? And then that hamster on the wheel starts looking left and right and running off the wheel. It really is that simple. So I know I've talked a lot about how do I stop doing that, but until you realize that you're stronger than the gun, 100%, you're going to keep doing it. You really are. And it's going to take, hours and hours at the range to kind of counteract that. And then the thing that happens is you take your 1911, you're like, I love shooting this. I don't do that when I shoot my 1911. Then you get that little gun that you just bought in your hand and you go, snap, whoa, that's snappy.
Noisy cricket.
The thing that people have to realize is it is the same exact explosion in a smaller system, right? So if I have that same exact explosion in a smaller system, it's going to hurt more. It's, if I take 10 pounds, right, and it's this big thing, and I drop it on you, like, yeah, whatever, like, it hits, right? Take a 10-pound pillow, still 10 pounds. I take a 10-pound marble, and I drop it on you. It's going to hurt. That little gun can't take up any of that recoil. It can't. So you feel all of it. And that's when, I said to you before, like, people buy these small guns that they don't want to train with, and then they carry them and they expect to have some kind of great result. They're probably not going to have the results they want. If you're shooting low left in a very controlled environment, you're probably going to shoot even more low left when bullets are coming the other way, right? Great quote from Bloodsport, right? Brick not hit back.
Very good. But brick not hit back.
Target doesn't shoot back either. So when we start applying stress to it, you'll start to see those things happen. And you can do that. Just go with your buddies and have a competition. Everybody throws $10 in the pot, get the timer out. Whoever the fastest gets the money. Fastest with the best hits, right, gets the money. And you'll see people really slow down and take their time to get good hits, because you got to have the best hits too, right? So it really comes down to practice and understanding the physics of it, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If that gun's going to have that boom, and I've got 2 pounds of steel and plastic and springs, as opposed to that boom with, ounces of plastic and springs, I'm going to feel all that, and I'm going to anticipate. I'm going to try and stop it. And you can't stop it. It's going to happen. You got, like you said earlier, you got to let it ride.
So, do the same principles apply to rifle?
Absolutely.
So if I'm missing low left, high right, whatever I'm missing,
Yeah.
it's not that my scope's off or my barrel's this, or I got the wrong ammo, and we haven't talked about ammo yet.
But,
so
maybe. So let's worry about the shooter problems first, right? I will tell you 99% of problems with shooting are the shooter, right? I joke all the time, from the rear sight backwards. That's where all the problems are going to occur, right? So when I take a rifle, now we usually increase distance a little bit. Right? So the subtending of angles is a thing, right? So if you just think about a slice of pizza, that little tip at the point is the same angle as at the crust. There's more angle at the crust. So you are at the point and you shoot and you move this shoulder. I'm shooting a rifle and my shoulder goes like this. Well, if my shoulder goes in, my rifle goes left. Right? So I anticipate by moving my shoulder now, because I'm like, this thing's starting to beat me up. So I start moving that shoulder. It's going to throw it off, and it's going to look a whole lot worse at 50 or 100 yards because I moved. So that's another reason not to get one of those super high caliber rifles until you're ready for it. Start off smaller. And not to hurt anybody's feelings, but you're never going to buy just one.
Guns. Lots of guns.
no,
you're never going to buy.
I don't need any more guns, said nobody ever.
Right. I believe the equation is X plus 1. X equaling what I own plus 1. It's always a thing. So you do have to kind of buy that starter gun, right? You don't just, when you're teaching your son to drive, you didn't just go buy him the most expensive car you could find.
No, I bought him a used crop car.
Yeah, because he's going to bump into things, right? The reality is you don't want to buy that super expensive because you're going to knock it over, you're going to drop it, right? You're going to do stuff to it, and then you're going to be devastated. But every little thing I do when I'm shooting is going to lead to something in the miss. And, going to the hunting aspect, I watch people all the time go to the range to zero their hunting rifle from a bench rest position and then put it back in the case and leave. Zero your rifle either in the prone or bench rest so you know the rifle is exactly where it needs to be. And then start thinking about what positions would I be in when I shoot?
In a stand, around a tree.
Right. Off balance.
Yeah.
My legs are numb from sitting down too long.
Yeah.
I'm cold. Too much coffee. Whatever it is.
Part. I hate that being freaking deer season.
Oh, the beginning's not so bad. It's the end that gets you.
When you haven't got that tag filled and it's December.
Yeah. Just praying for snow. But
there's a reason that I like going with the dog bird hunting.
Because you can scope it out.
I'm running around and I'm walking and the dog's doing this thing and he's fun to watch. And I sit in the deer stand and I go,
well, this sucks.
But at least you have something to watch. We make friends with squirrels in the woods, right?
Absolutely.
Start talking to them.
Yeah.
But I try to encourage folks, you made the comment to me, so I'm the new hunter or I'm the inexperienced hunter. I hang a pie plate up, I go shoot it, I'm like, I'm good. When are you doing that? Well, if you think about hunting season, it starts when it's a little warmer and it cools off, right? A lot. I see a lot of folks go, well, I'm going to go zero my rifle before archery season starts because I don't want to have to worry about it and I want to go out and do my archery hunting. And then never do anything with it again. So they're zeroing in August, September. And then they go out, it's 80, 85 degrees, 90 maybe when they zero it, and it's 40, 30 degrees when they're out hunting, or worse. There's going to be a zero shift because of the temperature.
Zero shift. Explain what that means.
So,
please.
Couple things. Your rifle will shoot differently when the barrel is cold than when the barrel is warm.
Sure.
So when I was just at the range the other day, I was helping a guy out with some things, and there was a guy there zeroing his rifle, his 300 PRC for hunting.
Dude, it's like
a lot of money.
Is he hunting on the East Coast?
No.
No, he's going out west.
Yeah, he's going out west. But still, I'm like, and he had his loads. That's a lot of guns.
I'm not shitting on anybody who shoots 300. I'm not shitting on anybody who shoots whatever they want to shoot. It's like drinking your bourbon. You drink what you want to drink. You shoot what you want to shoot. 300 PRC is a lot of bullets.
It's a lot of bullet. It's a lot of felt recoil. So follow-up shots can be tough, right? And it's usually a heavier gun to help offset some of that recoil.
Which is a pain in the ass carrying if you're going from mountain to mountain.
Yep. So what he would do, he shot 5 rounds, and then he let the barrel cool down. Then he shot 5 rounds, and let the barrel cool down. And then he felt comfortable with his 0, so he waited a half an hour. And then he shot again, 1 shot, to confirm that it was still where he wanted it. And I said, look like you've done that before. He's like, yeah, it's not my first rodeo. You know, we had a quick conversation. I said, when are you going to check your cold bore? He said, 2 days. I'm going to come back in 2 days and check my cold bore. Cool. So when are you hunting? He goes, 2 weeks. Perfect, right? I don't know what he was hunting, but he's going out hunting in 2 weeks. So
This is last fall. Or
yes, this was last time. Right, so he does his thing, and then when he's done, I'm back at the range. I'm just shooting, right? Because that's what I do. And he comes in, and now he's standing with the rifle. And then he sits down with the rifle. And then he kind of gets like half on the bench and half off. 1 foot kind of under him, 1 foot out. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I might be in a tree stand. I might be in a blind. I might be on the side of a hill. Like, this guy's hunted before. And that's the reality. Too many people go out, shoot their rifle, and they zero their rifle once a year, and then they never shoot it again. I've said this to you before. I'm a big fan of hunting. I'm a big fan of venison. I'm not a huge fan of tracking my deer for hours on end. And we've both heard the stories. I know I hit it. We followed the blood trail.
Done it.
Never found it.
Done it.
If you were a better shot, you wouldn't have to track that deer as far. Height over bore is another thing to worry about.
Right. So maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, you know, we talk about that 0 shift, that a cold bore is going to be different than a warm bore. Right? And I knew, you know, when I was in law enforcement, I knew what my rifle for my duty work was. I knew it was always going to be a half a minute left and a quarter minute high. I knew it was. And you think, well, is that big a deal? In law enforcement, it can be, right? You know, we're taking life-saving shots. All my hunting rifles, I have a data book for each rifle, so I know what they do. The other end of that is I can keep track of how many rounds I've got through it, so I know when I need to get a new barrel. And if things start to go wrong, I also have my maintenance log of everything I've ever done to that gun, right? So, hey, when's the last time I changed this? When's the last time I did this? I'll know. Some of my guns, I don't worry that much about, right? They're just fun guns. They might get cleaned once a year, maybe. Sometimes, you know, I joke with some friends of mine, I clean some of my guns on the 32nd of February, right? It's a thing. But if it's a gun that I'm going to fill my freezer with, I want to take care of it. But I need to practice with that thing. You know, to talk about the ethical kill zone on an animal, it's big. The bigger the animal, the bigger the kill zone, right? But on a deer, it's relatively small. And those little things like to move, right? For whatever reason, a deer, especially with arrows, they can jump over them or duck under them like nobody's business. So when I take my gun at 10 yards, I have to understand my scope is here and my barrel is here. So at 10 yards, I've got like a 2.5 inch offset. When it comes to hunting, people say, well, why is that important? Because you may have to take a follow-up shot. And now you don't have a cold bore anymore. And you need to know, does my gun shift back to my warm bore 0 after 1 shot or 2 shots? And, you know, it might be a complete miss. And then an hour later, you have another shot. Well, is my barrel really cold? No, it's not. It's going to hold on to some of that heat a little bit. So unless it's sub-zero out, your barrel's not going to freeze up on you, right? And then you have to understand too, like cold bore ambient temperature at 40 degrees is going to be a whole lot different than cold bore at 0 degrees. And then you start thinking, well, would I even go hunting at 0 degrees? It depends on how eager you are to fill that freezer.
And it depends on if you've paid for an elk hunt.
Yes.
Right? You get dropped in Alaska on a caribou hunt. Yep. You're hunting.
You're hunting. So you need to understand where it goes. And I would encourage folks, you know, if you belong to a range or not, if you want to be serious about it, join a range that's open year round. and just go and fire 5 rounds out of your gun once a month all year long. So you can see how it's going to respond in different conditions. Your rifle is going to respond very differently in February, but guess what? So are you. And what's my clothing going to be like? So if I zero my gun and then I put all my hunting gear on, am I going to have the same response? I'm not, because my cheek weld will be different, my shoulder will be different, my hand placement will be different. I might be wearing gloves, so it's different, right? So you need to understand how that's going to work. And I know there's going to be people out there that say, I've never had a problem, right? Because you're shooting at 50 yards, you won't have a problem. But then all of a sudden, trophy of a lifetime is at 200 yards. And you don't know what to do. So you aim a little higher and miss. Or you dial your scope, take a breath, shoot, and take it home. So it's just some training is really all we're looking for. And we talked about this before. Love him or hate him, Tom Brady had a quarterback coach, right? Barry Bonds had a batting coach.
Tiger Woods had a swing
coach, right? Everybody's got a coach. So if you want to get better, you need someone that knows what they're doing, critiquing you. And it can't just be, that's good enough. It can't be. If you want to be good, it needs to be better than good enough. And you made the comment, your rifle holds 1 minute at 100 yards. So it's holding an inch group at 100 yards. I guarantee you the rifle will hold a half-inch group at 100 yards if you just took a little bit of time. So that 1-inch group at 100 yards is a 2-inch group at 200 yards, is a 3-inch group at 300 yards. The angle's just going to keep subtending. And then everything you do is going to cause problems too. But with a little training, you can figure that out. And what is that group when I'm standing versus when I'm seated versus when I'm prone versus when I'm frozen to death in my tree stand? Yeah, and I'm shivering. Yep. And then don't forget, I don't care how many deer you get, it's still a rush when you're going to get one, right? You still feel it. You're just like, it's not quite what it was, but it's still, or we wouldn't do it. It's still fun. That adrenaline starts flowing. All of a sudden, you don't hear anything. Problems don't exist anymore. You get that deer. Life is good. And then you feel that adrenaline dump afterwards. Like, now I'm exhausted and I got to drag this thing, right? Now add all of that together with, I had to track it for 6 hours to find it. If I was a better shot, I wouldn't have to track it for 6 hours.
There you go.
I have to track it for 6 yards.
There you go. That's good.
So
he's not going to run again, is he? God. And I don't want to chase this deer today.
Right. And, that's the other thing, and I know that we were talking more about the gun thing, but one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, and it actually was from Dustin Parent.
Sure.
He's like, just let it run. Shoot it, sit still. Because if you start chasing it right away, or you start making a lot of noise right away, its adrenaline spikes and it's going to go further. I was like, I never really thought about that.
That's archery. Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to let it run.
Just let it go.
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll find it. And it won't go far if you did your job right. 12 to 15 seconds of running if you hit it right through the heart, right? So it's not going to get that far. Yeah, it's fun stuff. And we, the offset, right? That zero offset. My gun is zeroed, but I'm really close. Just remember there's a difference between the scope and the barrel. So all that stuff is important. Big thing, I know we haven't really talked about this, but before I go out, I make sure that everything's tight. I make sure.
Yeah, I made that mistake.
Make sure the scope is, torqued properly. Make sure the action screws are torqued properly. If I've got that type of setup, if it's a chassis setup, I love hunting with everybody looks at it like, is that an AR? Nope. It's a 308. It's a bolt gun. I love hunting with it.
We'll kind of come back to that, but go ahead.
But I make sure everything that needs to be torqued is torqued to the proper values. And I know people right now are like, well, what if I don't know what that is? There was this thing in the box, and it's either a book or a QR code that is called an owner's manual. And in that owner's manual, believe it or not, Steve, it's everything you need to know about that scope or that gun. And it will tell you what the action screws need to be at. It'll tell you what your scope mount needs to be at. There's nothing worse than like, why did I miss? And you grab the scope and it jiggles. Like, oh my God. And then what do? Do I have to re-zero that? If you have, and this is where people will argue with me, if you have a good quality scope, if you put it back in the exact same spot it was on before, tighten it down, you don't need to re-zero it. It's zeroed. You might want to confirm it for the next day, but your hunt doesn't have to be over. Right? I do carry tools. I'm a weirdo. I've got the backpack. I've got tools that I need to fix my gun in the field because, don't get me wrong, I've probably been frustrated more than not and left. But if I'm like, I'm going to get this sucker, I'm going to be able to torque my gun back down in the field. And the kit's only that big. Now, if I'm out west and I'm hiking all over, hell and creation, I'm not bringing that because ounces are important in those things. But when I'm whitetail hunting, so many things go wrong. I have dropped my rifle. I have fallen down, right? So I want to make sure I do the same thing when I'm archery hunting. I make sure I have the things I need to fix it if I break it in the field, to the extent that you can. And
Tom and I learned that lesson.
an extra release.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you right now, I know the general vicinity of 2 releases in the woods. One of them's mine and one of them's Coop's. And we, different days, different seasons, different years. It was different years. We lost it in the same general area. And every time we go out there, I spend a little time like, maybe it's still here.
I have a buck call, and I know about where it is in a 50-yard radius.
Yeah.
There's a burp.
So, and on that zero thing, we keep talking about, Montana, Wyoming. I love Montana, so I keep talking about Montana.
I would like to have seen Montana.
Clem loves Montana. He'll be joining us in a little bit.
I hope he does. Before I have to go to bed. The older I get, the earlier that is.
I feel that.
But, if I'm going to go on a hunt and I'm going out to Montana, I've got a class coming up. I got a hunt coming up. I'm going to go do a training. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to zero my gun and I'm going to record what that is. And if I've got a Kestrel, right, then I can trust what my Kestrel says, or I've got a rangefinder that records all that, or even an app on my phone that I can record it, or a data book that I can record what my zero is. And I've been out there before, and I know that my zero shift is 3/4 of a minute. I'm just throwing that out there and just made it up. Don't quote me. Then when I get out there, I know I just shift my gun 3/4 of a minute. I take my shot and I see what's going to happen. Because here, at my house at 700, 800 feet above sea level, most of New Hampshire is relatively, I get to the sea coast and I'm at sea level. I come here and I'm not that high, even top of gunstock.
Yeah, it's fine. We're at 500 feet here.
Yeah. So, we can arguably say we're about sea level. And if we're talking about ballistics, from a ballistic calculator standpoint, we're roughly at sea level, right? Now I get out to Montana, Wyoming, I'm at 5,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 feet. I'm going to have different ballistics. That bullet is going to travel easier through that air because the molecules are further apart, right? So it's going to travel easier. My ballistic coefficient will be the same, but the air is different. So that round is going to travel further because it has less resistance. I will probably get a better distance before that bullet goes transonic. And then we're getting a little into ballistics here.
Sorry, we can go because he's not going to be able to join us. So okay. Go ahead.
So we get into that transonic state where the bullet is no longer supersonic. It's now traveling at basically pistol caliber speeds, right? It's at 950 to 1,000 feet per second. But it's further away in Montana than it is here. So I'm actually going to get my shot off a little further out there because I don't have that same resistance. The other thing that I'm going to have out there, that even when it's a windy day here and I go into the woods, it's not a windy day anymore because we have thick trees. The parts of Montana that I go to, I don't think they know what trees are. They have sagebrush, right? And it's everywhere. And anytime a tree starts to grow, they cut it down because it sucks up all the water, right? And it's all about pasture land out there, right? They're grazing lands. So when I get out there, I know that I'm going to be able to get further away. And it's probably going to be a little drier. We get a lot of humidity here. They don't have a lot of humidity there. So that's going to be a change. The biggest thing, though, is the wind. Because the mountains, I can see them, but I'm probably not in them. I'm in the plains. I'm going to have wind just coming across at 20, 30 miles per hour all the time. So it's going to blow my bullet off. It's going to change everything that I'm trying to do. The other thing is we're really good at reading the terrain where we are. Like we live here, we know. Like you knew how high above sea level you are in your house, right? Because we know that stuff. When I go somewhere else, I'm looking and then I don't know that there's a big divot there. It's going to look like it's shorter because there's dead space. The same thing happens when we're out on the lake. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've been listening to chatter from someone that would kill me if I mentioned their name. said, I think I could swim to that island. I'm like, nope. No, you can't. It's a whole lot further away than you think because you have that calm, dead space that you just can't see. And that gets shooters all the time. So little things like rangefinders, right? Rangefinders are great. Not all rangefinders are created equal. I get a rangefinder at Walmart, it's going to get me about 300 to maybe 500 yards. As that beam gets bigger, it's less reliable coming back. If I want one that's going to give me 600 to 1,000 to 2,000 yards, I'm going to have to spend some money. So it all comes down to, again, what are you going to use it for? But the ballistics are what the ballistics are. They don't change, but elevation is a huge factor in that, right? So when we start talking about ballistics, we start looking at things like humidity. It doesn't have a whole lot of impact, but it does have some. Right? And humidity is one of those things where, we go outside, it's super humid, like, God, the air's really thick today. It's not, actually. It's not thicker. You just don't have gills. You don't breathe water, right? So you're having a hard time. And the easiest thing to tell people, like, water exists in 3 states: liquid, solid, gas. So if I'm shooting at ice, stops the bullet. Shooting at water slows it down really fast, right? They did a pretty decent job in that John Wick movie where he's in the pool and they're shooting into the water and they show how the bullet. It does. It slows down really fast. When we do ballistic testing, we shoot bullets into the water so there's no damage to the bullet, right? It's a
ballistic shell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no damage to the bullet. Even in gel, the bullet can break apart depending on the composition of the bullet, right? If it's a hollow point, it opens up. So, but with gas, if you think about it, take a block of ice, huge block of ice, put it in a pot, put it on the stove. As it heats up, it turns into water, right? And it settles and it's water, and now it's easier to put your hand through, if you will. What happens when it boils, though? Forms steam. And what does that steam do? It rises because it's lighter than the air. So the bullet actually travels easier through humidity. There's less resistance because it's now going through gas that's lighter than the air, right? Barometric pressure is a big one. Barometric pressure is easy to remember. The more pressure, the more it's going to push down on the bullet, right? The bullet will impact lower with high barometric pressure. More pressure, bullet goes lower. More humidity, bullet goes higher, right? So kind of got to think about that. More elevation, and elevation has the biggest impact. Bullet's going to go higher. And so as we start looking at all the things that are going to impact that bullet, if we have a high temperature, because hot air rises, right? We have high temperature, high humidity, high elevation, and low barometric pressure. We're gonna break records with that gun. We're gonna get a new PR on that gun. I had my youngest out in Montana with a 16-inch barrel, 308, carbon fiber barrel, stock store-bought ammunition, 175 grain bullet. He was ringing steel reliably at 1,400 yards with that gun.
That's wild.
It shouldn't be able to happen. And here, it wouldn't. It wouldn't do it. You might get 1,200 yards with it. But what do I really need? It's a hunting gun. It's just a super light hunting gun. And love it. Great gun. Had to give it back. Didn't want to. Had to give it back. But
I'm sure I know what it was.
I will have another one. But it does what it's supposed to do. And it was designed for long-range hunting. People say, well, you need bigger this, bigger that. You don't. Like, all of that whole thing, if you look at all of it, 300 Win Mag, 7 PRC, 300 PRC, 6.5 Creedmoor, 7 millimeter, 308, they're all 30 caliber projectiles. They're all traveling within a window of the same speed. The big thing is, if I leave the muzzle at 3,100 feet per second, I have more speed at greater distance. If I'm shooting an animal with a 30 caliber projectile at 400 yards, it really doesn't matter which one it is. Unless I'm shooting at something that's got like built-in armor, right? Like a big shoulder that might block the heart as I'm coming back. I might want something that's going to punch through that a little bit better.
As opposed to a thin-skinned whitetail.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it comes down to that kind of stuff. But I've got buddies in Montana that only hunt with 6.5 Creedmoor. And it's the ballistic tip hunting round, but it's a 6.5 Creedmoor. And they're shooting elk with them all the time because they're good shots. Now, if you hit it in the shoulder, it's probably not going to bleed out, right, with a 6.5. You got to hit it in the heart and lungs. And then they don't go that far. You find them.
Yeah, nice. I know we're kind of getting into family time here, so Clem is not going to join us, but he wanted me to ask, or he wanted to see, make sure Dave talks about trigger control. And he said one other thing, but I think we've covered it already. But
Okay.
I'll ask you if we haven't, but
We can always come back.
trigger control.
So trigger control comes down to what platform I'm using and what my distance is. So I'll say I've got a friend of mine, great instructor. People always say, stop slapping the trigger, stop slapping the trigger. And I kind of equate it to the Wedding Crashers, the whole hot route scene.
What is hot route?
Hot route. It's like, I don't know what that means. Just go over there.
You just go stand on the other side, please.
You just say that. So what does it mean to slap the trigger?
That's going in here now if I can find it, just so you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it should. Because when you think about slapping, you think about slapping.
Yeah.
And what they're talking about is if this is my trigger, then this is slapping the trigger, right? I'm coming completely off and back on. Well, if I'm at 3, 5, 7 yards and I'm making a group like that, I'm punching the X-ring out and I'm doing this, who cares? Is slapping the trigger the problem? It very rarely is the problem. The problem is usually doing something with your hands, right? So trigger control, if I'm taking a 100-yard shot with a pistol, I'm probably going to slow down, right? I'll take that finger, I'll place it on the trigger, I'll take up that little bit of slop that's in there, that little slack, and then I'll just ease it back. And I'm not pressing, I'm not pulling, I'm compressing my fingerprint into the metal of that trigger until the gun goes bang. And if I'm trying to take that long range precision shot with a pistol, I'm going to let it ride and then let it settle back on, right? So trigger control is a big thing. And we look at it from a pistol standpoint. I'm going to have a flash picture, right, where I just need to get that sight on target. Like if we're this far apart, I'm not even going to aim, right? I'm just going to, gotcha. If I need to shoot, somewhere over in that, I got to take out Al Pacino in your poster. As soon as my gun's up and I see that red dot or that front sight on Al, I shoot.
There's a poster of Al Pacino over there.
Right there. I'm looking at it. The Godfather. But if I take that same poster and I put it 30 yards away. Now I'm going to come up, I'm going to settle a little bit and shoot. There's not going to be any difference in my presentation. There's not going to be much difference in this, but I'm probably not going to get in there real quick, right? I'm probably going to place and press. But it's still going to be a 1 to 1.5 second shot. Now I have to shoot a quarter at 15 yards. Gun still comes out of the holster, comes up fast, get on target. Bang. Now we're talking, 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds to settle, get that shot. Do I hit it? Maybe, maybe not, but at least my sight is settled. So if this is my target, as soon as I get that up there, flash, right? Bang. I don't care where I hit it as long as I hit it. This is my target. As soon as I get it there, settle, bang. If it's smaller than that, right, little pinky nail, I got to make sure I'm settled, bang. And the hard part is we move, right? We always move. And the red dot's easy to show people because you can see it moves. Iron sights, not as much. They move, but that red dot looks like it's going all over the place. So I need to kind of settle that. So that's kind of trigger control. The days of press, slowly release, click, reset, press, slowly, I don't do that anymore. I never do that. I will teach people that just so they know where it resets and then kind of ride it, right? But if I'm close and I need to be fast, I am slapping that thing. I'm slapping it, right? It's like a Dave Chappelle skit, right? Like just slapping people as I walk down the hallway. But it's happening, right? And I'm coming off and coming back on, slapping. With a rifle, like an AR-15 or an AK-47, where I've got positive control of that gun, why not? It's not going anywhere. I can move that finger as fast as I want to.
No, I couldn't do it.
You can, I promise.
I can't do it now.
You're conditioned not to.
Yeah, because if I do that, everything's going to move.
Yeah, and it's not. And a lot of that comes in where, I'm not controlling the gun here if I have an arm out here. I'm pulling it into my body, and this is just, I can Sicario that thing, right? I don't have to worry about holding on to stuff. It's just there because that's where it goes, and I can manipulate my controls. But a lot of my rifle control comes from the offhand. So again, I can slap that thing, but now I'm going to zero my rifle. I'm down, place, press because I don't want any extra movement. So it comes down to what I'm trying to do. In precision shooting, if I'm taking a precise shot, same thing's happening, right? I'm getting my sight on target. I'm settling my sight. As I'm settling my sight, everything's kind of tightening in. I get all settled in. I place my finger on that trigger and I just slowly compress that fingerprint and it goes bang. I let it hang there for, half a Mississippi, if you will. And then I work my bolt and I come back and I get set back up again. And as soon as I'm settled where I need to be, bang. And I'm controlling my gun as much as I can without touching it. I've got my shooting sock back here for elevation. I've manipulated it wherever I need to be. I settle down behind the gun. I let that breath out, shoot. So trigger manipulation really comes down to what am I trying to do? And a lot of times people learn how to shoot on grandpa's shotgun. And you mash a shotgun, right? You mash that trigger. So then what do? They mash everything. So we need to understand the difference. And the only way to get good at that stuff is to practice them all individually. So when we go to the range and we have 100 rounds, how many of those rounds are we actually training and how many of them are we just burning it down? I love to be, I'm at the range, and, I'm working at an indoor range and I'm trying to teach a class and I hear, and you've been on an indoor range. Everything forward of the firing line has a bullet hole in it. The ceiling, the floor, the walls, everything. And I'll always make the comment, they're just turning money into noise. What's the training value in that? Break some hearts, make some enemies. There is really no reason from a practical standpoint to have a full auto rifle. From a practical standpoint, there's no reason. Is it fun? Absolutely. Am I discouraging anyone from buying one? No. But from a training standpoint, unless you're in the military, even SWAT teams don't really need them. We're accountable for every round we fire. So if you go to the range and your whole point is concealed carry, and you come out of the holster and you just like, meh, good enough. Did you train? Or did you just turn money into noise? So if you're worried about trigger control, we have to get up on target, right? And we need to make sure that all that's practical. And then we have to decide, what am I going to do today? I'm going to shoot at 3 yards. How much trigger control do I need at 3 yards to hit an adequate size target? Not much. I'm going to shoot at 25 yards. A lot of trigger control, right? So it comes down to having enough training to discern when I need to stay in the pocket, when I need to scramble, when I need to just throw the ball out of bounds, right? And that's an easy one for people to understand because everybody loves sports ball, right? Same thing's happening with that firearm. Do I need to stay in the pocket, take my time, make that perfect shot, right? Or is it, this is danger close, Will Robinson, and I need to take that shot right now? How much of a trigger control do I really need? The bigger thing for trigger control for me is when it's here, get it off before the gun comes down, right? Because, again, being at the range, look at the range tables. Mm-hmm. There's bullet holes in those too, right? So we want to make sure that finger comes off that trigger. That's the trigger control I'm worried about.
Safety, yeah.
Before we go back to the
That's your first safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's a hard question to answer, but there's a lot of different things. Slapping the trigger inside 15 yards, you're not going to miss much. Your skill set and your distance dependent.
Cool. Tell them where they can find you, social medias, websites, stuff like that.
Social media, 603 Precision on Instagram and Facebook. And my website, 603precisiontactical.com.
Cool. Thanks for checking out the Artemis channel. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you check out Dave's on all of his socials. Listen, if you guys have got questions here, put them in the comments below, and we'll get Dave to come back later on this summer, and we'll answer some of those questions. Hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.
You were worried